As Jeremy Corbyn gazed out over the 2018 Labour conference on Wednesday, after the most confident and relaxed speech of his time as leader, he will have seen an energised party about which two apparently incompatible generalisations can be made. The first is that 3 years into the Corbyn revolution, Labour has now been radically transformed into a party in the leader's own far-left political image. The second is that Labour's many factions, interest groups and traditions are nevertheless mostly managing to work together in a surprisingly pragmatic way. There was evidence for each of these claims in Corbyn's speech. The left radicalism was there in the attacks on privatisation and outsourcing, the racket on which a Corbyn government would call time. It was there in the enormous list of uncosted government spending commitments, which covered housing, police, childcare, public sector pay, universal benefits for older people, and investment in transport and green energy. And it was there in the well-drilled section denouncing the political and economic elite, by implication New Labour as well as Conservative, that kept the banking system afloat after the financial crisis a decade ago. But the practical pluralism that allows Labour's differing interest groups to all leave Liverpool in something like good order was there in the speech, too. Labour was a broad church, Corbyn acknowledged, invoking an idea that many thought had now gone. The party achieved nothing by being divided, he insisted, so it should not seek out division. It had to draw a line, easier said than done, but said nevertheless, under the bitterness around anti-Semitism over the summer. Instead, Labour embodied the new common sense of our time. It was the new majority. These are mere phrases. Yet many observers of the Liverpool conference will recognise that they chimed with something real in a successful week for Labour. As Corbyn delivered his leader's speech, the historian David Cogan was highlighting not just the unimaginable shift in Labour policy stances since the Blair-Brown era but also the spirit of give and take that ran through many of the proceedings, not least in the handling of Brexit and in the relationship between the trade unions and the momentum-dominated grassroots on many policy and process issues, often behind the scenes. Labour is a volatile coalition, but even Corbyn seems up for a bit of distinctly Blairite triangulation these days. Labour will vote against Chequers' plan, or whatever is left of it, says Corbyn. Video. The important thing to grasp about the Labour Party of 2018 is that the two generalisations, Labour as left party and Labour as broad church, have not yet become incompatible. Corbyn's speech juggled them rather effectively. If the party of today was the fully Corbynized body that some claim, there would be little room or appetite in it for habits of pragmatism, compromise or experimentation. But there is still that appetite. All this could change. But Labour's leaders appear to have calculated that an all-out confrontation with sitting MPs over re-selection, for example, is not in its interests. Fear of the formation of a new centre party is real. Its creation would prevent the election of a Corbyn government and leave its social democratic programme stillborn. Hence the relative ecumenism on show at Liverpool, with no big splits and almost none of the jeering of the early 80s. Hence the union's successful efforts to rein in some of Momentum's demands on re-selection. Hence the open-armed parts of Corbyn's speech and the role of the Shadow Chancellor, John McDonnell, in pushing to widen their embrace. The reality, which has been obvious for some time but which was also powerfully apparent at Liverpool, is that Labour is a more complicated party than many of Corbyn's supporters, and enemies, like to pretend. It is also worth pointing out that this has often been true in the past too. Labour has never been all one thing or all another, even in the new Labour ascendancy. Nobody is ruling out Remain as an option. Keir Starmer at Labour's Brexit debate. Video. 2 separate sessions on Tuesday on the conference floor embodied this dynamic complexity. In the first, the shadow Brexit secretary, Keir Starmer, electrified the conference by saying that nobody is ruling out Remain as an option. The standing ovation that greeted the comment took even him by surprise. The issue dominated the news cycle, and every nuance of Corbyn's speech regarding Brexit was put under the microscope to see if it aligned. They did, sort of. In the same hall on Tuesday afternoon, the delegate from Harlow, Colin Mayan, moved a motion on Palestine in a fiery speech. He, too, brought the halt to its feet. He, too, stirred prolonged cheering and chanting. All of a sudden there were more flags being waved in the Labour conference on Tuesday than they have in the Albert Hall on the last night of the proms. It was hard to tell which was the larger outburst. He too stirred prolonged cheering and chanting. Delegates waved Palestinian flags in response to Colin Mayan's speech. Photograph, Stefan Russo, PA. The lazy thing to say is that the part of the conference that gave Starmer a standing ovation in the morning was the Labour right, while the part that waved the Palestinian flags was the left. There's some truth in that, of course. Labour moderates are passionate pro-Europeans, while the Labour left has always seen Europe as the rights issue. By the same token, the Palestinian cause has always been principally that of the left, while the Labour right has been more pro-Israeli. Yet my unscientific impression, sitting there, was that plenty of people in the Labour conference were equally roused by both issues. The support for each was spread wide and randomly within the hall. That's hardly unreasonable or weird. You can be passionate about the case for Britain to stay in the European Union and also, in a logically connected part of the brain, be passionate about the need to oppose those on both sides who prevent a peaceful two-state solution in the Middle East. The direct impact of the conference on these two issues is, however, very unequal. Labour's commitment to Palestine remains overwhelmingly rhetorical. Its practical ability to shape Brexit, on the other hand, has never been greater. Labour leaves Liverpool recommitted to a very soft Brexit indeed. It also leaves Liverpool as a party that is open to a general election or a second referendum and even, depending on circumstances, to a second vote in which Remain, as Starmer said openly and Corbyn seemed to confirm, could be an option. All this is incredibly hard to forecast. Only a mug would try. But Corbyn's recognition of his need to prevent a Labour split has meant that he has allowed a space for the European cause to advance far further up his agenda for government than he might have preferred. Is Labour now capable of solving the European question? That is a stretch. In Liverpool, though, it felt as if a future Labour pitch to combine a £350 million pledge to the NHS with a pledge to stay in the EU, not to leave it, is now an almost imaginable combination. It is a strange thought, but it may have fallen to Corbyn to save the country. Martin Kettle is a Guardian associate editor and columnist. Sorry your browser does not support audio, but you can download here and listen. https://flex.acast.com/audio.gim.co.uk/2018/09/26-51111-gdn.pol.180926.podcast.mp3